The Sporting Chance podcast is brought to you by Mountain State Falconry. Hit up mountainstatefalconrysupply.com for all of your falconry gear that you needed yesterday. And tell Heather that the Sporting Chance sent you.
And also, this podcast is brought to you by Midnight Falconry, makers of the tightest braided equipment on the market. Visit them at midnightfalconry.com.
And also, ajourneywithredtails.com. Check out the new book by author Bob Glass, A Journey with Red Tails. Bob is an accomplished falconer, having successfully flown many species over many years. He is an authority on the subject. We can't recommend the book highly enough, A Journey with Red Tails by Bob Glass.
And last but not least, shout out to our boy, Seth Roy at North Mountain Goshawks for the finest, exquisite hunting partners money can buy. Visit him at northmountaingoshawks.com.
All right, check it out, guys. One more thing. This podcasting shit is expensive. Absolutely expensive. I'm in financial ruin. Casey, how is your finances?
They are dwindling because of this endeavor. That is for sure.
Our only hope at not being foreclosed and acting out alone by necessity with our goshawks is if you go to sportingchancepod.com and buy a t-shirt. We're begging you. Love, all that is holy. Buy a shirt. Our lives depend on it. Welcome, everyone, to the Sporting Chance podcast. I am Aaron Kincaid.
And I'm Casey Everett.
And we are joined today by falconer and all-around interesting person, David Feliciano. Did I get your last name correct?
Yep, that's right.
David, where are you calling in from?
Lakewood, California. So that's Southern California. It's got the original suburb, I guess, actually. So I was just learned about this. There was the first suburb was somewhere in Pennsylvania, I believe. And then here, the town of Lakewood was all these homes were built in like 1950 to 52 when the soldiers were coming home. So they just put up all these homes in a housing tract real quick. And it was like the first suburb and it worked out great. So it became like the kind of the model across the U.S. for suburban life.
That's
but
interesting.
Bordering Long Beach, which is, Long Beach. We're all familiar with that. Snoop Dogg. Got Compton's 3 miles away.
Hell yeah. It's got to be bumping. City of Compton.
LA County, border of Orange County. Grew up in Orange County. Pretty typical suburban California life.
Something I've noticed about Southern California is there's much more of an aviculture there. Aviculture being bird keepers.
Definitely.
Do you find that's the case?
I mean, I don't have like a frame of reference for other places in the U.S., but definitely common around here. My parents had a blue and gold macaw and a blue-fronted Amazon before I was born. They were in the family for over 20 years. We have several parrot shops that are local. One of them is Omar's Exotic Birds. It's almost like I wouldn't call it a chain, but they have several locations throughout Southern California now. And his ex-wife has her own spot. It's called Exotic Birds by Friends. And grew up, going in there and getting the birds' beaks coaxed and everything. And then you go in these shops and they've got the parrots just out on like their own little perches. And you can go up and interact with them. So I'd be going and handling random birds as a kid and grew up around birds. But yeah, enough of a culture around here that there's several exotic bird shops that are been around for decades.
That is very different. Casey, is there anything like that up near you?
No, definitely not like that. But I would say that there's a lot of, or at least there used to be a lot of cool reptile shops when I was a kid. Like little hole in the wall places where you could go and get like super cool stuff that like Petco and like they would never dream of getting. You go in there and they got crazy stuff that like came off some boat somewhere, and probably from the wild at some point. And when I was a kid,
covered with mites,
freaking biting the hell out of you. Yeah, but that was more over here, but I don't remember going anywhere where there was, like specializing in birds or anything like that. No.
I guess it's the weather in Southern California.
Yeah.
It just kind of lends itself that way. But it's also, that's the place where herpetoculture, keeping reptiles and amphibians started too, was the West Coast. Neat stuff, man. David mentioned earlier that he actually keeps a rattlesnake.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I have a speckled rattlesnake. So in California, you can collect rattlesnakes with a fishing license. Falconer, a friend of mine, collected it as just a tiny little guy. It had no rattle, just a little button on him. So I've had him for, 4 or 5 years now.
Oh, that's awesome. How big is he now?
Probably about 2.5 feet.
Now, how big do they get?
Yeah, that's almost full grown for that species. They have they vary in size. Some of them that'll max out. I've seen other ones that are exceptionally large, maybe 3 feet. So he could keep growing or he could stay around here.
That's pretty
They're
sweet.
probably not a deadly rattlesnake, are they?
No, I don't know if there's been any deaths attributed to them. I know somebody got bit and is missing, part of his finger from one. But that's what I've heard is kind of typical to expect if you get bit by a speck is missing a digit or something like that.
Do you handle the snake at all?
No, never.
Yeah.
I grew up, keeping all sorts of stuff and handling everything as a little kid, and kind of got that out of my system now. Actually, I have a kind of a sad story about that. I'll get back to it. But no, not the venomous, and even anything I keep now. I don't have any other herps right now, but I've had tarantulas, centipedes, all sorts of inverts and herps, and don't really handle much of them. Don't find a real necessity or reason to. But when I was 3 years old, my older brothers, I think it was a gopher snake they caught somewhere out camping and brought it home, and they let me handle it. I just squeezed it to death. I got so excited.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
no more free handling for me. But I don't know if you guys heard about that guy that got bit by a taipan a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was actually in South Carolina. The inland taipan, world's most deadly snake.
So what happened? He got bit? Is he alive? I missed that. Was that on social media?
His whole shtick was free handling his venomous snakes, and he'd go and troll the venomous groups, telling people they have no relationship with their snake. And
is that the kid with the nails?
Afraid of it.
Is that the kid with the long fingernails?
A different guy.
That kid's a
different
freak,
guy.
Man.
But yeah, I think he posted that day about not being afraid of his snake and then got bit.
Jeez. Yeah. It's just not a good idea. You could calm the thing down and get it, tame or whatever, but one little accident, now you're in the hospital, now you're missing limbs. It's just, I don't see the point. There's really no point.
Yeah. Even with, if I had a boa constrictor, had one when I was a teenager, it was cool. But if I had one right now, I don't think I'd feel the need to handle it. Kind of like my hawks. If I'm not flying them, I'm not really interacting with them much.
Take the hands-off approach. I like it.
Yeah, I'm not into handling reptiles anymore. It's whatever, A lot of times I'll see a wild black rat snake outside, and there was a point in time where I couldn't resist picking it up. Now I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't feel like getting bit and shit on by the snake, so I'm just gonna leave them alone.
Sounds like you lost the fire.
I don't think I lost the fire.
I was chasing a garter snake.
I'm looking at snakes right now on my shelf.
In their cages?
Yeah, in their cages.
Okay.
I like keeping them. I treat them like fish. You don't pick up your goldfish and handle it unless you're a fucking idiot.
Unless you have a relationship with it.
Yeah. Maybe you could build a relationship.
Like the kid with the nail.
Yeah. I think his name is Chris Sweet. I believe that's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
The guy, it looks like he's an American living in Southeast Asia. He's got king cobras and stuff.
Yeah, I used to follow him years ago. I haven't really kept up to date with him. I just know he's got those creepy. The videos he posts go viral because he's always holding deadly stuff with his creepy fingernails. It looks like he looks like Sauron from Lord of the Rings.
Good reference. I like it.
Yeah.
So,
That's
David, you had
awesome.
mentioned on the subject of the aviculture and the parrots and all, you had mentioned one of your early experiences with hawks that had to do with your
Oh
parents'
yeah.
parrots.
So this was pretty tragic. So my parents had, like I mentioned earlier, a blue and gold macaw and a blue-fronted Amazon, and they were wild caught birds in the mid to late 70s. That was pretty common before people were really breeding parrots in captivity as much as they are now. So the macaw, when they trapped the bird, they um, trimmed the wing too far, so they basically like accidentally pinioned the wing, so it just permanently didn't have flight feathers on one wing anymore from the time they got it on. So it just roamed the yard all day when I was a kid. It would just like go up on the patio and go up in the palm tree and like and the palm trees are who knows 20 feet tall, overlooking like the major street. People would see it, come over to the house, like, oh, can we see your bird? And this went on for like 20 years. Nothing ever happened. Bird just be out there, and at night he'd come down. She was a female, actually. She'd come down, bring her in the house. She was cool. Um, and then one day I was actually away at college, and I get a call that the bird had got grabbed by a red-tailed hawk. And it was real brief. So bird was on the patio doing its thing, and the hawk grabbed it, and they did their thing for a brief second, and then the macaw got dropped, and it had a punctured lung and expired pretty quickly after that. Um, but living out here in the middle of Southern California, it was well. I'm sure I see red-tailed hawks all the time now, and I'm sure there were just as many of them around then as there are now. I just didn't have the eye for it, living in the city, basically, not realizing they're all around us. So we had no idea that it was even a danger, until it happened. And it took 20 years for anything to ever go bad.
It's brutal. That's
Yeah.
always my big fear when I see people free flying their parrots. I'm like, man, that looks like I don't see how a hawk could resist seeing a giant blue and red parrot fluttering around.
Yeah, that can't outmaneuver them.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
it
how
sounds
do
like
they fly?
sounds like a big baggie.
Yeah, how do they
Yeah,
fly? Can they outfly a hawk if they have normal flight feathers?
I wouldn't know for sure. I would imagine some of those macaws that people are flying regularly can outfly a red-tailed hawk, as long as they're not getting ambushed, uh, if they're fit. But most people's hawks they have or parrots they have aren't that fit. So some of those people they fly a lot. I imagine the birds are fit enough to outfly a hawk, but I wouldn't try it. And a falcon, it would. There's no way it could get away.
Yeah, you really do build a relationship with those parrots if you take good care of them and keep them in your house. They're like your babies. So and they live a
Yeah.
long, long time. So I'd be scared to death to risk it.
Yeah, absolutely.
David,
And we have falcons everywhere here now too.
Oh yeah, California's. We'll get into that, but I just have a question because you grew up in that space, I guess. What's the deal with these videos you see online of parrots with no feathers at all? Is that like animal abuse that they're trying to like get
That's
views or self-mutilation
usually
thing?
a neurotic tick. It's a self-mutilation thing. There's some sort of a disease that cockatoos can catch. I'm not exactly familiar with what it's called, where they can lose their feathers. But generally, when you're seeing that, it's a neurotic tick. Most common in cockatoos. So
Okay.
cockatoos in the wild are really social. They have huge roosts, huge flocks, and they're pretty needy because of that. So I used to do parrot shows at downtown Disney, which is like the little shopping spot right outside of Disneyland. For Rainforest Cafe, we had 4 macaws there and a Moluccan cockatoo. And that cockatoo he was awesome. It was like my best friend. Super excited to see him every day. Very social, smart, but I wouldn't live with him. He couldn't pay me to take him home as much as I like to be around him, on the job. Because he's just so needy, demanding. If they're not getting attention, they'll start seeking it out by making noise or, this bird would do what I call Rottweiler behavior. I don't know if you guys are familiar with male Rottweilers, they'll have this tendency to, if you're petting them and hanging out with them, if you stop petting them, they'll growl at you, like push you, like, hey, pet me, bitch. And they'll punk people into sitting there and petting them, and they'll get people like afraid to stop, giving them affection. And this bird would do that to my female coworkers that come in the office, and they'd be frozen in the chair. Like, baby won't let me get up. That was the bird's name. And if you try to, get up, you just put his beak around their forearm and just like compress. Like, they know exactly how much force they have, just enough to be obnoxious. Okay, cool. Just sit in your chair.
Oh my gosh.
He wouldn't do it to me. So I'd be like, hey, knock it off. And like, they're so social. It's like he understood even like me being annoyed with them, just to give you an idea of how needy they can be. And it's from that, what do you want to call it, natural behavior of roosting in those big flocks. So when they don't get that, they just start getting neurotic and screaming or spinning in circles or chewing things and eventually pulling all their feathers out.
Jeez.
Sounds like a typical broad. Am I right, fellas?
And that's actually one, I'm not big on restricting, having laws restricting what type of animals we can keep. But if there were to be laws presented to, no longer breed cockatoos and sell them and just kind of grandfather in the ones that are in captivity, I wouldn't be opposed to it, just based on my experience with them.
Yeah, they'll never pass anything like that because that's a mainstream pet.
Exactly.
Right. Now, our hawks could be outlawed any day now. But
yeah, and that's why I don't, I'm not a proponent of any type of stuff like that, but that's one animal where I'm like, okay, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Here's something crazy. Casey, did you know in Connecticut you can only have let's say you start off in falconry right now, you can only have a red-tailed hawk or like a Harris hawk and a Merlin. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And you can't trap them in your state that you live in, that you're licensed in.
Isn't that insane?
It's absolutely bizarre. You have to leave your state. You get licensed by the DNR in the state. They say, okay, good, here's your license. But if you trap a bird in your state for falconry that you're legally allowed to practice, then you'll get thrown, raked over the coals. So you have to leave your state, get permission to trap in another state, get your bird and go back.
And this includes captive born birds. Like you couldn't go buy a captive born goshawk.
No, I think there might be a loophole with like, that's the thing. I've been discussing that with a few different people because there's a kid in the United States. He has a goshawk, and it's a 50-50 Siberian Finnish bird. And the DNR wrote him a citation for flying the bird with no transmitter or only one transmitter, because they're trying to say that it's hybridized.
A hybrid, yeah,
right. But it's not. It's not at all, because the U.S. Government only identifies goshawks as the northern goshawk.
Right.
So that's going to get thrown out. And I told him, I said, it's a win-win. So if you lose the court case and you get fined for that, then now there's precedence that everybody who's flying a Finnish goshawk and an albitus goshawk, oh, great, cool. Now I'm going to cut the federal band off, and now it's an exotic bird. And I won't register it with the state anymore. Because if you're calling it an exotic, then it's an exotic. I'll need my falconry license to hunt with it, but I won't be legally required to do anything that they tell me to do. Maybe just get a permit from Fish and Wildlife to have an exotic pet. So I said, you're probably, if your lawyer's halfway decent, that's going to get thrown out before it even starts. Unless they want to go that route, because if they go that route, then it's going to open up a whole nother can of worms where, people could just go see any breeder and with no falconry experience at all and just buy a Siberian goshawk imprint.
Make sure you go see Seth Roy when that happens.
Our boy Seth Roy and North Mountain Goshawks
for your pet goshawks.
Yeah, he would never sell to anybody like that. But yeah, that's the issue, is they don't want to recognize it for that reason. I would imagine that's part of the reason.
Yeah.
But they were classified as their own subspecies, so it's like, are they their subspecies or are they not their own subspecies? Like, what do we, who has the final say?
What are we doing here, guys?
Yeah, which I would rather keep it just the northern goshawk, I guess, as much as I'd like to, have it, removed, and then we could kind of have a little bit more wiggle room or whatever, but it's still, it's an interesting discussion to have, I guess,
That's why we're doing it right here.
That's right.
On Sporting Chance Radio.
So stupid. Okay.
All right. Okay. David, what do you think about? You live in one of the most, at least our perception from the outside is you live in one of the most regulated states in the country. What's your perception on that?
We're regulated, but I wouldn't say we're one of the most. We're nowhere near that regulated, so we can trap quite a number of wild birds. Red tail, kestrel, Cooper hawk, merlins, and
you can basically trap anything you have there, right?
Yeah, prairie falcons are like the harder thing to get a draw for. You can't just go out and trap a prairie falcon, I don't believe.
What about ferruginous hawk?
Ferruginous hawk.
Isn't there something with them too?
Don't quote me on this, but I believe we used to be able to trap ferruginous hawks, and they swapped that out for barred owls, which nobody traps. Yeah. We can trap a barred owl. I don't know anyone who ever has. I'm doing falconry for 8 years here. But no ferruginous hawks. I think you should
pioneer that. You can be the barred owl guy.
Yeah. The red-shouldered version of the owl world.
Isn't that guy from California, the red shoulder guy?
The guy who fights the shadows with his knives on YouTube.
Is he from California? Oh, I don't know.
He looks like he'd be. No offense, David.
Again, this is I'm not 100% on those regs for ferruginous whatever, but I believe that that's the case.
You bring up a good point. I guess what I'm thinking about is there was talk that like Fish and Game can just with no grounds at all, just show up and jam up your facility if you have a falconry license.
So that was all going down right when I first got in. So I've been doing it 8 years now. Let's say this started around 7 years ago. So there was a guy that had a abatement license. He had a propagation permit. He was a falconer, breeding birds, and Fish and Wildlife did I don't know if it was state and federal or just state, but they showed up to his facilities, and then everybody that they knew worked for him or had a bird, that was on his abatement permit, and just did a surprise inspection on everybody. And it was coordinated at like 5 a.m. or something wild like that. And they did it on the grounds of when you get your falconry license, you have to have your mews inspected by a game warden here. And then you're subject to random inspections. It almost never occurs unless there's somebody that reports, your neighbor, hey, I got a guy next to me has a hawk in his yard. But even then, the warden will generally look up the house and say, oh, that's a licensed falconer, not even bothering with it. But it's kind of there for those type of situations. And they used it to just do a, coordinated inspection on all these people simultaneously, which reads more like a warrantless search.
A sting operation.
Right. So he had some charges for, I think, some paperwork that wasn't, completely proper. He's breeding a lot of birds, abatement permit, birds on different permits and licenses and things like that. And I believe that's all that really came of it. As far as that investigation, if you will. But subsequently, some lawyers got involved. One of them is a falconer in the state, and then some other pro bono lawyers that work on things that they consider to be like First Amendment rights issues and stuff just for free. So they took it on for that and for what they were calling warrantless searches. And then also the part of the regulations that said we cannot use our birds for any type of print, Hollywood work, stuff like that. And they were saying that was a violation of our First Amendment rights. So that was going through the courts for many years. And the latest I heard on it was that the state just gave up on the First Amendment thing, and people are now using native birds for movie, print work, stuff like that. No longer only exotics, and the state just decided they don't want to fight that. And the inspections, random inspections, we're still subject to that. I don't know anybody that's had that happen since that original, operation 7 years ago. I don't know where that stands as far as the part of the case where they were trying to basically get our regs to say that we can't have those random inspections. Fish and Wildlife said, if you're not home, we're not going to come in without you there. If it's an unreasonable time, you can tell us to go away and we'll come back at a reasonable time. And that was, their argument for it not being a warrantless search.
Well, that sounds fair.
I think when you have a propagation license, I think that is held to a higher standard, and I think they do an annual inspection. At least that's what I heard.
No.
Yeah, but it was that they inspected all of his abatement workers at the same time. Anyone that they thought was, anyway tied or associated with them. I don't know how many falconers were all inspected at the same time. No one else had any charges or any violations other than the one person that they seemed to be investigating.
What's his name?
It's Fred Hassan.
Oh, okay. Never heard of him.
I don't know if I haven't heard anything of him kind of since this whole thing happened. I don't know if he still lives in our state. I don't believe he's breeding birds anymore. I have a Lanner Falcon that he produced 8 years ago. He's great.
Cool.
The Lanner Falcon is great.
Yeah, I do abatement work with him, so he's cool. I imprinted him, and he's kind of a dick. So he'll go and clear the airspace and chase off ravens, whatever's in the airspace, just because he's an asshole. And then he's super loyal, so then he'll come back and lure stoop. I don't have to worry about him killing anything or fucking off and tracking him. So
right.
For me, he's great. If you're trying to make a game hawk out of him, he'd probably be a bit frustrating.
What is it about Lanners that keeps people from flying them on game?
Well, I only have experience with this one, but from what I've seen, they're just not as intent on, they're not as hard hunting and as intent on killing things and more opportunistic than a peregrine that just wants to, mow things down, and intelligent. So if you're imprinting one or even flying a chamber bird, if they figure out they don't need to hunt, they're not just hardwired to do it just for the fun of doing it like some other falcons.
Interesting. I think I heard some similar stuff about them.
And they don't have an impressive wing beat. So I was flying him on a landfill, and it wasn't as effective as a Tiercel peregrine, is essentially the same size would be if it were doing the exact same thing. He'd thermal up 500 feet, go out, the beach was a mile away, go out, clear the air, come back, and then fold up from 500 feet and lure stoop. And gulls would watch him and they'd thermal, away from the trash pile and kind of give him a little bit of respect. And then as soon as he was done flying, they'd come right back in the trash, and I'm trying to feed my bird, put him away, get another bird. Whereas a Tiercel peregrine doing exactly that probably would have bought me 2 or 3 hours of time of everything leaving the landfill. But the Lanner Falcon's got a light wing load. He's thermaling and kind of butterflying around. Just doesn't look as intimidating as a peregrine doing
just
exactly the same thing.
Just the look of a peregrine will inspire more fear.
Yeah, the wing beat. I was flying a Gyr peregrine there too, he'd go up 1,500 feet to the drone, and just that aggressive wing beat. He's just climbing to the drone. He's not focused on anything else, but everything seeing him do that, they're like, that's a powerful bird. And they know the difference.
Yeah.
So what you do abatement work, and I'd love to talk more about that. So you were saying you were doing abatement on gulls at a dump. Is that what it was?
Yep.
So why can't seagulls be at a dump eating trash? What's the problem here?
They're actually required by the state to keep the birds out of the trash. They'll get fined if they don't. It just becomes a public health and safety hazard. They get in the trash and they'll take it and spread it in the housing tract behind there. And also, this particular landfill is a mile away from the beach, and they dump what they call sludge there. So which is just human waste in a sludge. I don't know if it's coming from.
Where do they get this sludge?
I don't know. It was they were being paid by people that aren't even in their jurisdiction. So not even the local residents to come and dump this sludge. I'd watch them. They just come and just dump this liquid shit right at the base of the pile. And they try to have a bulldozer come in and bury it real quick and, the best they can. And so if you got birds in that and then flying right into the ocean a mile away, it's a big problem.
Landing on, people's beach towels and beach chairs with covered in human shit. I love it.
Everyone's getting hepatitis.
There was a dump near my house back when I lived a few towns away. And we used to take trash there. And every now and then you'd go there and the animal shelter would dump the dead dogs and cats there while you were there. And you could see them. I remember seeing like bloated dogs laying there with their little legs sticking straight up in the air, still with collars on.
Oh my God.
And then the dude, it was like the smooth concrete surface. This dude had come by in like the little track loader and just like push the dogs, into a pot. It's crazy, man. You probably see some crazy shit at the dump, don't you, David?
Oh yeah. Never a dull moment. I haven't done it in a few years. I did it for a couple years, kind of paid my dues, and the guy I work for, he's got a lot of business out here. So now that I've been loyal and done all the hard stuff. Oh, you can't put a newbie there. Can't put someone totally green there. So it's kind of the intermediate. Newbies generally resort, something like that. You just got a Harris Hawk and keep a couple of goals away from stealing people's food. And that's sort of the introduction here for abatement work.
Cool. Who were you? What was I know a couple guys out there. What's the one guy's name? His name was like Jafar or something. What's his name?
I work for Adam. I work for Adam Chavez, but I'm trying to.
There's another guy.
That's the Aladdin villain, right?
Yeah, no. There's another guy out there that has a name like that, and he has a lot of business out there. Vahe. Okay, Vahe.
Rastakhan.
I was close.
Yeah, Vahe's got business out here. He's hit me up before, but Adam keeps me busy, so
that's cool.
I think it's time to move out west and be abatement falconers, Casey.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
You guys get paid well. We all know that, right? You
That's
sneak
all right.
any hawking in?
Oh, of course.
While you're doing abatement, you sneak a little bunny in here and there.
Of course, or a starling, or when I was flying a Merlin, whatever. So sometimes, you'll get an account that's right next to a field, or you'll get an account where it's abatement, but maybe they need a little bit more than hazing. So depending on the species, we can take in certain situations, and others we can only haze.
Take one, make an example of him in front of everybody.
Spank his bottom cherry red in front of everyone.
Or just have the birds just rip it apart and just send a message to the rest of them.
But I'll use the crows for that exactly. So like at the landfill, a lot of times the gulls would use a thermal to just watch me. And if I go to the bathroom or something, they drop down. So if the ravens or the crows would be on the roads, I'd let my hawk chase them, and the gulls would be up there and they'd see it all. And okay. That hawk means business. And the crows make a racket when you're hazing them too. And everything within earshot knows that there's danger around. So I'll do that intentionally, let the crows alert everybody to my presence all the time.
That's good.
So the hours are grueling with abatement, aren't they?
It can be. If you're doing a landfill, it can be sun up to sundown. If you're doing ag work, it's sun up to sundown, and you're living on site a lot of times. I haven't done any of it. That's more Northern California, Oregon, Washington, blueberries, cherries, vineyards. That's definitely grueling hours. They make better money than the urban jobs I have. So get a little give and take there. Some of them will kind of work seasonally and then get to take time off for hawking or other work or something other times of the year.
It's pretty cool. It sounds like
I have it's not a 9 to 5, but it's so suburban here, and the stuff I'm doing, I'm chasing geese out of a not a high school, a middle school, chasing seagulls out of a high school, doing an aerospace contract, just all this little stuff that's just, right in my backyard. So I don't have the grueling hours and, the commutes and stuff that some people have doing abatement just because of where I'm located.
I wonder why abatement is so prevalent out there. It's not here. I don't know of anyone that is actually doing abatement in my state. Like, there's people that have abatement businesses, but they always work out of state.
Interesting.
I think some of it's the just the fact that it's available, so you get the kind of the word of mouth. Like, one school finds out that we solved their problem, and then another school district calls us, or one, business to business, resorts especially, or also the people who are running abatement firms out here have an internet presence, and then we've got pigeons everywhere. So people just, they got pigeon shit all over their business. They get on Google, who could take care of my birds, and they're like, what, hawks? Like, they didn't even think that they were looking for falconry abatement. They're just looking for someone to solve their bird problem. And then we've got a bunch of abatement firms here.
And they'll pay a premium for hawks to show up, won't they?
Yeah, because it's exciting, and it's exciting. It's green. It's effective. People love it.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that they'll show up with the hawks for like a little, just a little show, and then after the public's gone, they go around and put the hawk up and get to work actually dealing with the pigeons.
If it's pigeons, absolutely. Pigeons are almost always a trapping or a shooting. If you want to solve the problem, you're trapping or you're shooting them. There's some spots, downtown LA and stuff where it's not feasible, or you just couldn't even trap them all because they're going to come in from everywhere else anyways. So you can use a hawk if it's, it's a restaurant and the pigeons are sitting on the roof, shitting on the tables from these hours, and they need us there. But outside of a particular situation like that, in my opinion, pigeons trapping and shooting. So sometimes the client, they want falconry abatement for pigeons, and it's kind of like you said, we're flying the bird, and they see all that and they get the window dressing. But what's really effective is me removing those pigeons, not with my hawk.
So what are you using what air guns are you using to shoot pigeons?
I have a Marauder, cheap gun, and then I have an Air Arms, which is a British gun I bought like 7 years ago before the FX and all those like American guns really caught on. So my stuff's a little obsolete, but I don't have big shooting jobs. I just have to have a gun sighted in, ready to go when I need it. I did one job out in Central California. It was grains where it would just be piles of different grains everywhere, like mounds, like this, as big as a house. And it was thousands of pigeons. I shot 3,000 pigeons there in a month.
Wow.
It was just, living out there for the whole month. It was wild. I had so many pigeons. It was like these pigeons were like this big and just corn, whole corn kernels just blowing out of their crops, almonds from the almond orchard. Ryan Grisco was coming back from a job and stopped by, and I gave him like 2 trash bags full. And he's been doing this, as long as he's been alive. And he's like, these are the nicest pigeons I've ever seen in my life. And I was having to just throw them away because there was no one. I didn't have freezer space anymore. Took as much as I could, gave as much as I could away. But that was a one-off job. Actually, my boss still has the account, but now the guys are shooting like 10 pigeons in a day out there because it's so cleaned up. But yeah, now I just have my Air Arms, nothing fancy. As long as it's sighted in and ready to go, that's all I need right now.
I've always wanted to buy a really nice air rifle.
If I was doing like, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one. I actually helped on a pigeon job And my buddy said I could either pay you in, cash, or I could give you my old air rifle. I'm like, oh, dude, I'll take the air rifle.
Was it a Red Ryder BB gun they gave you?
No, it was actually Dave Canellis' old rifle, which is pretty good, but it has a leak in it. So,
so it's a piece of shit. He ripped you off.
No, it lasts like if you pump it up, it'll last like a full week before it's like, really needs to be refilled. It's like a very slow leak. I could probably send it out to somebody to get it fixed, but I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, the Python Cowboy, he's got his own brand, like his own like signature air rifles through, I think it's Ed Leshy, something like that. It's a Russian company. I think they're the dealers in California. David, are you familiar with those?
No, my friend mentioned it to me a couple weeks ago, but that was the first I heard of it. He said someone else had bought one, not used it, sold it to another falconer, just telling me about it. But that was the first I'd heard of that brand.
Yeah, you can get a little crazy with those air rifles. I mean, anything in the shooting industry gets extremely expensive very quick.
Don't they have like ridiculous caliber now? Air rifles, like 50 cal or something?
Oh, you could shoot. Yeah, there's air rifles you can hunt bears with and deer. All kinds of stuff.
It's crazy. I like the concept of lead-free, though, for hawk food, like David was saying. Lead-free pellets.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a smart way to do it.
Is that not mandatory in California? I would imagine it is with any type of shooting.
It is for hunting, but it is not for pest control. That's something I discovered incidentally. We were doing a bid for the landfill. It comes up for bid every once in a while. Other people get to come and compete for the contract. And there was one guy that was out there that just did regular pest control. He didn't do falconry stuff. I don't know how he thought he was going to control a landfill, but people started kind of picking his brain while he was out there, and he was talking about rabbit jobs he had, shooting pest rabbits, and he's not required to use lead-free for those jobs because it's not hunting.
Imagine living in a state where you have pest rabbit contracts. And I just got done slaving all day today, beating brush and running the dogs to get 3 slips.
Yeah, to find one rabbit.
Yeah, they killed it in a hole. At least we got one. But whatever.
So, David, that leads me to a question, and this was inevitable. Me and Casey were on the East Coast. We're bitter East Coast guys. You're living out in fantasy land of sunny California. Tell us what it's like hawking out there.
Oh, we got a little bit of everything. It depends on how much you're willing to travel and what you're trying to fly. And it kind of depends which region you're in too. So Southern California, you got rabbits, jackrabbits and cottontail. You got them kind of urban stuff like outskirts of golf courses and industrial parks, little pigeon or postage stamp sized fields that haven't been developed yet. That kind of sucked in all the rabbits from everything that was developed around it. Some of that type of stuff. You've got duck ponds. If you're willing to drive to train a falcon and drive to fly ducks, it's not easy, but you can do it. You got some of the best Merlin falconry in the world in Central California. Probably like the pinnacle of Merlin falconry, if you want to fly Jack Merlin from a pitch, is in Central California.
Why is that exactly?
They've got places where they're growing alfalfa, where it varies in height, of course, but what they're looking for is alfalfa that's like half an inch tall. And then they've got all these sparrows out there in essentially no cover. In a giant open field. So Merlin will take a pitch over the falconers and pin these birds, and then you flush them and you get a bunch of awesome chases, and the Merlin will just keep coming back and remounting. And if you've got that perfect cover in that giant field, you can't get better than that of a slip for a Jack Merlin.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I've flown a couple Merlins, but never from a nice pitch like that. That's a whole different world for me.
Chris
Starr he's the only one that I've seen post anything decent like that.
He was flying right out there.
Yeah, other than the cool murmuration flights and stuff that you see online, but like actually like where he's walking through like what looks like grass, and then he would pan up with his phone, and you would just see the little jack up there just like floating.
Yeah.
He never got anything on film chases, but I'm sure he had some beautiful flights. It looked real nice out there.
Yeah, and that's where he was. Central California, all the way up, I think, to probably Sacramento has some spots like that. And the Merlins will adjust their pitch and their flight style to the terrain because they're passage birds and they know exactly what they're doing. Especially a jack, because their whole thing is catching birds. They catch birds for fun. They catch birds just for experience so they can later prove themselves to a female. So when you get one for falconry, like a really good one, a keen one, they just want to catch birds and cash it and come back over. And that's just like what gets them going, is chasing and catching birds. So with all that experience, they know exactly what they're doing. If you have high cover, they're going to lower their pitch, or they're going to land on a telephone pole, which is kind of what I was doing with my bird out in, tighter areas, putting them up on a telephone pole, the end of a hedgerow that's 200 yards long, going out to the end of it and flushing birds right into him. And then he'd come and, have a good long run at those sparrows I was pushing into him. And we did some stuff from a pitch, but his pitch was 50 feet, 75 feet max, because all of our cover was higher.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Yeah, I caught many a sparrow from the trees, which is blasphemy, but
with a Merlin?
Oh yeah, a ton.
What a piece of trash.
Piece of garbage.
And that's what you find with Merlin falconers. It's there's a little bit of snootiness to the style in which the bird is caught.
They're long wingers, so that's to be expected.
They might be worse than some of the duck hawkers in that way.
Yeah, they get, and then God forbid you trap a Merlin and you start training it. Now they're all gonna chime in on, oh, how did you hood that bird? Can you talk us through that? It's like, bro, it's just a picture of my bird hooded. Like, take it easy, dude. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
you trapped that bird 21 days ago. Why isn't it killing anything yet?
Yeah. Why is it not 400 feet up in the pitch? It's unacceptable. Like, shut the hell up, bro. Yeah, man. These people, man, these falconers, bro, and their little clicks and their little BS. It's so obnoxious. I mean, we get obnoxious with the
goshawks, right?
But we're not like, we're not like complete douchebags about it. But some of these communities, man,
I don't know about that.
Well, I think you should be out catching stuff and flying, but I'm not gonna. I mean, Aaron, maybe you get a little bit with like the park squirrels, but I'm like, dude, get after. As long as you're catching stuff, dude, you're flushing them out of dumpsters, bro. Light the dumpster on fire, the squirrels jump out. Who cares? Catch them all, bro. Catch them as
maybe you'll take out a homeless person while you're at it, right?
Yeah, do the world a favor. Did I say that?
Oh yeah, so I guess that gets back to my falconry. So you're saying what's falconry like in California? So yeah, it depends on the region. Northern California
probably has. Speaking of homeless encampments in California, tell us about your falconry. Do you deal with that a lot?
No, I haven't. Occasionally here and there, but in the stuff I'm flying, it's not like out. It's not under the bridges where you're hunting ditch ducks. You'd run into it there, and then I'm not going out in like the middle of nowhere hunting rabbits either. The rabbits I'm doing are in places where most people wouldn't hawk them.
Perfect.
So I got dachshunds, so I got a pile of broken up cement somewhere where they're doing construction, where you walk in the field and the rabbits all go into the broken up cement pile and you can't hawk it, but you get a dachshund in there and now it's a viable field. So I'm flying a lot of stuff like that. I'm not really running into homeless people so much doing it.
Unless they're underneath the pile of rubble.
They're living in the rubble.
Just living down there doing something.
But people are going to the more open traditional fields. That's a concern for some people.
Yeah.
What's that? What's a concern?
The homeless encampments. And, you would get that like, oh, hey, there's a good, even when I was talking to Merlin, there's a good sparrow field here, but, watch out for the homeless dude there.
Yeah. Just comes running out. He's like, ah!
I may have lost the spot to a homeless camp. Me and my sponsor went to fly the Seth Roy male goshawk.
Yeah.
And it's always traditionally been a great spot. There's always been, a little bit of a homeless presence here and there. But we went there last week, first day of season. Actually, it was this week. There are probably like 12 different tents set up. And it's in an industrial area, like a little creek bottom behind a shopping center between an apartment. And one of there's like 4 tents combined into like a little neighborhood. And they've got a German Shepherd tied to a tree there. That's like going ballistic.
Do you ever think that maybe, with the catastrophe that happened down there, you think they're just people that lost their houses? I mean, $750 from the government could buy you a nice tent. Nice sleeping bag.
It could get you a really nice tent.
If you're from Ukraine, maybe you buy a new house or a Lamborghini.
You get $7,000.
Yeah, $7,000 per citizen of Ukraine, but our citizens get $750.
I got a feeling these are not refugees from the mountains. No. David, if you're not familiar, we had this huge flood in the mountains here. The hurricane, just went completely off course from where in my lifetime a hurricane has ever been, and just completely flooded and wiped out these mountain communities. But yeah, I don't think these are people from the mountains. I think these are people from the next town over. At any rate, point being, I may have finally lost a spot to homeless people.
Well, you just pay it. Maybe you just pay them off.
Dude, is the deal breaker is the German Shepherd. That's the deal breaker.
Yeah, definitely.
I could deal with them there. I mean, everybody there. I ran into a dude while we were there, and he was nice. He was fine. I just said, don't mind me, man. I'm just walking by. And he goes, oh, yeah, man, you're good. But the German Shepherd, that fucker was out for blood. He was
it's not good, man. It's not good. Yeah. That's the problem, man, with little dogs, man. It's just I think about it all the time, dude. All the time. Like a stray dog. I mean, Ginger was working a hedgerow behind these houses, and this freaking giant German Shepherd just materializes in the side of the house, just how they trot, he was trotting up with his ears perked, right at Ginger.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Bro, I never ran faster in my whole life through the brush, the briars, screaming, vibrating Ginger. She comes running, and it ended up being kind of a puppy German Shepherd, but I just picked her up, and it just kind of, it just was I guess it was a good dog. It just kind of stood there, looked at us, wagged its tail a little bit, and then walked away. But I'm like, that could have been it right there, literally.
Well, a buddy of mine had his dachshund was ripped to pieces by 2 stray dogs while he was out hawking.
God, dude, come on.
So, David, you run dachshunds. Tell us something about that.
That's how I'm able to do what I do out here. It's basically crucial to my falconry, and that's why I'm not having to drive. So I'm in Orange County, but people who are from this area who are wanting to do traditional rabbit hawking are driving out to Riverside, which is an hour and a half drive, maybe, or all the way up to the high desert place called Hesperia, which is 2 hours one way for me. And then if I beat the traffic of the people there, that's the route back from Vegas. So if you're hawking there on the weekend, you're going out in the morning and then you're trying to beat the people coming back from Vegas, or you're going to spend 3 or 4 hours driving home. So I don't want to do all that. I wouldn't have a happy. It's that bad. And my fiance wouldn't be having it. I wouldn't even be able to have a happy relationship, dedicating all of my free time to my falconry. Yeah. So, the dachshunds allow me to hunt stuff that's within a 30-minute drive for me. You wouldn't be able to flush anything without very small, tenacious dogs.
We're right there with you. And we have the luxury of being able to work small little spots. Little quarter acre, half acre lots that have rabbits in them with the dachshunds.
Yeah. I ran into a falconer out my old house. I moved in July. There was a train track that ran behind a park, a mile from my house. And I ran into a falconer that's been around for a long time. We'd never met. And he was like, "You're hawking here? What?" And I catch rabbits at that spot. And he was like, it was his neighborhood. He's like, "What do you mean you're hawking here?"
Were you flying a Harris hawk?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the perfect hawks for those tiny little postage stamps.
Yep. And it's not for everybody. A lot of people would say it's gross or whatever, but
Not
it allows
listen,
me
not where you
to do
live.
this. Exactly.
No,
Dude, it's a perfect hawk for hot weather for sure.
yeah, it's perfect.
So, speaking of running into people and like the terrain you're in, I get the impression there's a lot of Karen type of people out there. You run into any when you're in the city, in the suburbs, hawking?
I have not, and I would say that the biggest reason I haven't is because it's so far out of people's like knowledge. They have no just idea that it exists. So I could be hawking starlings in a parking lot. My bird can catch another bird right in front of a potential Karen, and all they see is my kestrel. They don't see anything else because it's like in their worldview, me catching another bird with a little falcon like it isn't a thing. So, and it happens so quick. If you've ever seen, we've all seen videos of kestrel slips. It's half a second, and it's got the other bird. And if you see two birds tussling on the ground, if you don't know what you're seeing, it just looks like one. So I've caught tons of starlings right in front of people and had a starling in my fist, the kestrel dispatching or plucking it on top of it, and all they see is the kestrel.
Yeah,
that's neat. I wish
that's a lot of fun.
I haven't really had run-ins like Casey has. He seems to attract them.
I don't know. Yeah, I just attract trouble. Maybe it's just my personality. I don't know. I'm always nice though. That's the problem. Is I'm always nice, but the problem is I'm nice like for the first few seconds of the interaction.
And then you turn nasty real quick.
Well, no, I just say, hey, how are you? I'm flying my bird. And then when they say, get the fuck out of here, which literally happened last year. That's their next sentence. Then I say, come make me. Come over here and make me leave. I'll sick my dog on you.
Maybe it's the Yankee thing.
Maybe that's East Coast.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I'll go all day, bro. I can't stand these people.
One day my bird takes off on a slip, chases a bunch of little birds out, almost catches, and I call him back to the lure. This is like in a parking lot. This lady drives by and she goes, he just wanted to be one of the other birds. He's just flying with the birds. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what you just saw.
Just strung out on like DMT or something, just staring at you, just watching.
Well, I guess people are probably pretty nice out there, right, David?
Yeah, I don't hawk people's front lawns anymore. Or I shouldn't say that I ever hawked people's front lawns, but people are nice if you're, not hawking their front lawn.
It's 70 degrees and sunny and beautiful. Why not be nice, right?
Yeah. Pay 80% in taxes or whatever the hell it is out there.
But I did have that happen once. I was calling my bird off like somebody's tent that they have over their driveway that they park their car in. And I'm standing on their retaining wall trying to call my little kestrel down. I look, and this like Mr. Miyagi looking old Asian man standing there with a bat, like just in his driveway, posted up. And he's just silent. And I didn't even know he's there. Just all of a sudden I turn around, he's just there. Like, oh shit. And I point to the bird. I'm like, hey, it's my bird. I'm getting him down. He doesn't blink, doesn't say shit. I'm like, oh God. I get the bird down and I'm just like, thanks. He still never even flinches. And I was like, all right,
he was waiting his whole life for that opportunity.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to stick to more traditional spots after this.
He's just staring at you. I caught a duck. I caught a duck in front of an Asian woman, like right in her backyard. Like the creek went through kind of the side of the backyard, and she seemed okay with it. I've ran into where I used to hawk where I live. There's a very big Asian community there, and I find that the Asian people love it. They think it's cool. I don't know. Maybe it's like different cultures or something like that. But they all like, even the ladies and stuff, they all smile. They think it's cool. Maybe because
most people think it's cool out here. I don't know. Maybe you just run into like some Jersey people.
Dude, they literally will like come up to me and I'll be like, yeah, I'm just flying my hawk. And they'll be like, are you allowed to do that? Like they're literally like the next sentence. Are you allowed to have that bird? Why don't you let that bird go? I'm like, whoa, settle down. I'm exercising my bird. I'm fully licensed. Everything's going to be okay.
I'm rehabbing.
Well, yeah, it's just like, there's a guy in Staten Island. I won't say his name. We're trying to get him on the show, but I was with him one time. He's from Staten Island. He doesn't play any games at all. He has no patience, which I love about him. And this guy, we're walking this field, and this guy opens up his second floor, opens the window, and hanging with his wife beater, hangs out the window. He's like, what are you doing out there? And Miguel's just like beating brush, telling the dogs where to go. And I should have. And Miguel just, without even looking at him, goes, who's asking? just like that. And just kept beating brush, like didn't even stop. And then the guy was like, oh. And then we were with another New York state falconer who a lot of people know. And he's like literally the nicest human being. And he goes over and was just Mr., hey, how are you? We're just flying our birds. It's a wonderful sport that we're participating in. It's a wonderful activity. And the guy was like, oh, all right. And then he, probably went back inside and shoved chips in his throat and watching the football game or something.
Hey, what are you guys doing out there?
He's like, what are you doing out there? It's like not even remotely your property. Like who cares? I mean, I get it. You know what I mean? Like I'm constantly like, I'm like that Asian guy. Like I'm always like, dude, I sleep with like a knife on me. Like I'm just like, I'm waiting, bro. Like I've been waiting my whole life, dude. I'm like that guy from remember Fat Camp when they're sneaking in his cabin and he's walking through the house like this. That's like me, bro. Like every single night, just hoping somebody would.
That's your dream.
Every time I get a ring notification,
yeah. This guy throws his gi on and freaking does a freaking jump roll and lands next to the front door. In full guard position, just laying on the ground, waiting for somebody to come in so I can leg lock them. So you're in jiu-jitsu, right? How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu for?
So I started training in like right out of high school. I graduated high school in 2000. Started training like in 2001, and trained hard from 2001 till like 2000. I say hard for someone in their 20s, on and off, till about 2006. And since then, I've just kind of dabbled here and there. I'll roll with a friend or drop in a class. I have an apprentice right now that just took on this season. He's a black belt under Clever Luciano, which is one of the first black belts to have an academy out here. Oh, cool. So that kind of got me excited about it. I trained at his gym a little bit. And now that I moved here, I'm back next to my original gym that I started training at, in the early 2000s. So I'm about to head back and start up again. But that was a big thing for me when I was young. About 5 years, I had it hard. Got a blue belt, and I was got a training for another 3 or 4 years after I got my blue belt, and then I don't want to say quit, but kind of quit, and now I'm trying to take it up again.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's kind of where I'm at. Pretty much the same thing, but you were training longer. Trained real hard for like 4 or 5 years. Got my blue belt, then got married, started my business, and now I just don't know how I could squeeze it in today. But my sponsor's a purple belt, D1 wrestler. I'm a blue belt. His brother was a college wrestler. Our other buddy Zach does jiu-jitsu and was a really good high school wrestler. And dude, you got it. You can't even go hawking in peace with these guys, man. It's like someone's getting double leg while somebody's trying to get their bird back. Everyone's freaking rolling. Everyone's pulling their phones out. Like it's just like it's And then Phil's like 40 something now, and he's got something to prove. So if like you just like remotely like even hint like you want to like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing over here? You start grabbing him, dude. He just goes like full 100%. And he just tosses you on your head, and then Zach will jump in, and somehow he just dismembers all of us. It's so funny. But no, I love that, man. Jiu-jitsu is great, man. My son's in it right now. He was there today.
I hate that stuff.
Yeah, well, wait till you get strangled out by a man that's half your size.
I know. That's why I hate that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what got me into it. One of our high school buddies was a pro wrestling nerd. And so he was a pro wrestling nerd, and then he got into Japanese pro wrestling, from WWE to Japanese pro wrestling, and then natural progression.
New Japan.
But yeah, so they're doing like their wrestling is like a theatrical jiu-jitsu. You know, they're doing more real moves than ours.
Strong
So anyways,
style.
that's what got him into it. And he's smaller than all of us. He was a nerd growing up. We could all beat his ass. And he starts taking jiu-jitsu like fucking summer right after senior year. 3 months in, he's whooping all of our asses like for fun. So yeah, we all signed up. Oh yeah, no, that's
I went with a friend of mine, and he's like Jimmy Rivera. I don't know if you heard Jimmy Rivera. He fought in UFC for many years. He was a friend of mine from school, and I would help him get ready for his fights and stuff. And I was just like lifting weights, and I thought it was like, you know what I mean? I was like, what's that kid's name? I'm 260. I'm 260 though, brother. That guy, whatever his name.
Bradley Martin.
I was like that guy. Like I thought because I lift weights somehow I could do something to somebody. Like it was just like, yeah, I'm just strong. And then like he kept telling me to come to the gym. And I went to the gym, and like this kid is like 130 pounds, and he just whenever he want, like he could probably like he could take advantage of me, and there's nothing I could do to stop him, literally. And that's what I was like, dude. I was like, I gotta do this. This is awesome. And then when I got into it, I dropped like 40 pounds, went crazy. I was there every day, 3 hours, single, And when you get married and have, you get in relationships, it's a lot harder to squeeze it in. But yeah, I was like obsessed, man. And it was the best thing I ever did. I mean, I'm still fat now, but at least I know, how to like do something.
It changed my life.
Happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't even imagine what I'd be like. I was a young adult, like barely an adult going into it, and, had no idea how to defend myself really. Maybe I thought I could. And then to do this and have, actual confidence that I could defend myself, and never been in a fight in my adult life. Probably, I actually think that's because I did jujitsu. When I was younger, you have like, the old guy in the parking lot, hey, fucking punk kid, you took my spot or whatever. And I'd be like, well, so are you going to beat my ass? And that's actually my response. What's going to happen? Are you going to beat my ass? And then they'd be like, what? And they go away. Where I feel like if without jiu-jitsu, I'd have been like, no, sir, it's okay. And then they come up and kick my ass.
Right. Yeah.
But also it taught me how to learn. That's what I think more than the, self-defense and the confidence is. It taught me how to learn to do things that require an awareness of your body, and then also how to understand things that take a lot of steps to do. Right, so if you're doing like an arm bar from the guard, for an example, you start putting your foot on the hip. And when you're a white belt, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. I could just throw my arms and my legs around this guy's arm, and then you learn quickly why every little detail, every little step is important. So when I went on to do falconry, and my sponsors telling me, these are the steps you need to take, this is what I want you to do, I didn't question anything. And I was detail oriented. I did everything I was told. I paid attention to every little step. And that's how I've approached anything in life that I've, any endeavor I've taken on since training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, man. I think everybody should do it. Especially young men should at least get in there for a year. Because right? I mean, after a year, you're anybody who doesn't know what they're doing, it's fine. Like just 1 year of training and you break somebody's arm right off their body. Like it's not.
Yep.
It doesn't take very long to learn how to like really end a fight if you had to.
Exactly.
No, but I love it. I keep telling everybody to do it, but nobody listens to me.
That sucks.
All
so
right.
There's that part.
Sorry about that, everybody. Back to falconry.
To each their own, am I right?
Well, to each their own. David, you what all have you flown out there? You touched on kestrels, Harris hawks, merlins. What else have you done?
All those, and then I flew a hybrid Jeer Peregrine for a season, and I flew it on sky trials out here. Did okay. Bird went to, you got to have a 500-foot pitch before you're allowed to have the bird serve pigeons at the sky trials. And the bird went to 650, and a couple guys before me, had already gone up 900 plus. So I'm just waiting to see if I can get more pitch. And he took off. and went into the hills. I had to go recover him. But, I took that as a newbie. I'd been doing falconry for 3 or 4 years as like a first or second year general, and took my hybrid out. He went 650 feet in the sky trial. I didn't get to serve him, but, it was still respectable for me. But the problem with that bird was he started killing crows when I was trying to duck hawk him. And here we don't have wide open spaces with a little tiny puddle with a duck or two on it. You're, going out and find a golf course pond, or if you drive out an hour and a half away, you could get a little irrigation pond, but it's still next to the suburbs. So if your bird starts to take any kind of a pitch, 200-300 feet plus, it's going to see crows or pigeons. And I was training him one day, and he killed a raven because he got grounded by a female peregrine climbing to the drone, and he was probably 800 feet, and female peregrine came in, took him all the way to the ground, and he was, dejected and pissed off, and a raven came in next to him, and he grabbed the raven. And now my mistake when I got to him was feeding him after taking him off that raven. So after that, any crow he saw when we were duck hawking, he'd go mow it down, and it's an easy kill. So I ended up selling him to somebody for abatement work. And that was cool. Kind of I had enough of trying to make a duck hawk out here after that. It was a lot of driving just to find places, just to drone, and, driving out an hour and a half each way to find a decent duck slip that wasn't if I don't want to fly a golf course, I'm driving out an hour and a half, 2 hours each way. And then all that work, and the bird's pretty much made, and then he, starts getting wet to crows. So after that, that's when I got the Harris hawk and started doing rabbits out here.
Cool. Dude, I'm hearing you talk about that, and I'm like, dude, I'd be stoked to catch a crow with a long wing. I'm like, that sounds fun, but not in that scenario. Obviously, there's not. I mean, I've been with my sponsors and stuff, flying like passage peregrines and stuff, and yeah, you're like trying to set up some kind of a BS slip in a place that's not really ideal, and then the bird just is like 400 or 500 feet up, and then it just goes on this long stoop, like all the way over the buildings, all the way over the highway, and then it's just like it stops on the top of a building, like and you're just like, oh my god! And then you got to go over, and the thing's up there plucking, and it's just a nightmare. It's like,
I got trespassed to get my bird back.
Yeah, you got to like get permission to go on the roof, and like you're in a rush because if he finishes eating and takes off, and it's a passage bird, it's just, you got to be in the right scenario to do it right. I attempted it, but it just, I do actually live in the proper place to do it now. I could drive 15 minutes and have 5-6 square miles with ditches.
Shit.
So it's definitely in my future.
You should really do it.
It's in my future. Yeah, I'm just having too much fun with the goshawks right now.
If it wasn't the driving, I would have tried it again. But there's something about going, getting up at 4 a.m. and I'm trying to beat the other falconers to the pond. That's another thing.
Oh, is that how it works out? That's how it works out there?
Yeah.
That's
so I'm getting out. I'm getting out there to this pond at half an hour before first light, and just in my car, just waiting for the sun to come up to fly my bird. And then guys that are, by like seniors in falconry, like Tony Seferdini and Michael Maxey, are coming out like, bro, you had our slip already with a bird that's not even fucking trained. They were super nice, super welcoming. Like, yeah, it couldn't have been more accommodating to me as a, newbie with an untrained bird at their slip before first light. But, doing that, and then I flush half the ducks off the pond and my bird fucks off, and then I got to go home embarrassed and annoyed with my bird, a long drive home. If it was, more reasonable commutes and traveling to do it, I'd probably still be trying it.
So that's a weird concept to me, running into other falconers while you're out hawking. Yeah. So California, I think, has the most falconers per state. Is that correct? Or do you know?
Probably. I think we have over 600 licensed falconers.
Wow. Jeez.
God. That's insane, dude.
The road to Bakersfield. That's what did it.
That classic DVD.
Mike Clark's video, man, got everybody all hopped up. The original.
David, and you had mentioned before we go too far from it, the sky trials. I have a little awareness of what the sky trials are. What can you say about those?
Oh, it's just an event, competition. So other people call it a pigeon derby, but you can bring any long wing out that you want, and you all put in the night before numbers at a hat. You draw a number, and that's the order that you fly in, and just go out to a big field and let your falcon go. And if the falcon gets at least a 500-foot pitch, they'll serve it 2 homing pigeons. And then it's judged based on how high the falcon mounts, how quickly it mounts, and the pursuit on the pigeons. And it's a big event. People come from all over the world to see it. We have 300 or 400 spectators every year for it. People coming from out of state to compete in it. It's pretty cool.
Who wins usually? Like, doesn't like Steve Chingren always win?
The Utah Sky Trials, he's won a ton of them. He's been out to ours, I believe, recently. But I wasn't at that event, so I can't confirm. But I think he came out to that. I'm not sure how he did. The California ones, Dave Cherry has won many of them. He's won more of them than anybody else.
Right.
But he's moved to Washington recently, a couple of years ago.
He flies just like Steve Chingren. I think he flies the Gyr Peregrines, right?
Yeah, strictly Tiercel Gyr Peregrine. And he'll tell you, I called him before I bought that Tiercel Gyr Peregrine of mine and said, hey, I want to fly falcon. And duck hunting was actually secondary. I wanted to fly in the Sky Trial, so that's a big reason I got that bird. And he told me, if you're serious about a Sky Trials bird, Tiercel Gyr Peregrine, 50-50. So don't do 3/4, don't do a female, don't do a pure peregrine. So if that's your goal and you're trying to get the best chance of winning, 50-50 Tiercel Gyr Peregrine.
What's the problem with the females? Just too big?
I'm not sure exactly. I think that's an aspect of it, but also they're not wired the same way. I don't want to say emotionally, but the Tiercel birds in general are more loyal, more biddable, easier to work with, and there's something I believe in their genetic makeup that makes them want to hunt more than just to feed themselves. Even a young male bird somehow knows, even if he's not thinking about breeding, something in his DNA is telling him, become the most effective hunter that you can, because that's the only way he's going to then pass on those genetics and impress females down the road. So I believe with falcons, when you get Tiercels, there's something in them that wants to hunt for the sake of hunting, whereas females are more goal oriented.
Well said. We've found that with, now when you say biddable, it's probably just falcons that are more biddable, the Tiercels, because broadwings, accipiters, they're generally not more biddable in my experience.
There's more humps you got to get through with the Tiercel goshawks. But like when you listen to Steve Lehman talk about the Tiercel goshawk and how if you tap into that, what David was describing, that just kill, repeat, and like the that primal instinct they have in them, if you can tap into that and get them in the right headspace, they're just absolute monsters. And that's probably most birds of prey, because they're feeding a whole nest, a whole eyrie, and it's crazy.
I found that with red tails. A lot of people don't fly Tiercel red tails, but man, they are crazy. They are just super motivated and gamey if you find one the right size.
Or it just kills mice.
Yeah, you find one that can handle squirrels, and that thing's a beast. Absolute beast.
Yeah, it's just a completely different flight style too. And I heard the female GPs are just like very big and just almost too big for like what you're trying to do. And
you got a problem with the big girls?
No, I love them. They know that.
My sponsor, my boss also, Adam Chavez, has flown a few female, the 3/4 Gyr Peregrines, huge birds on ducks, and he's had success with them. But he's just he loves to train birds more than anyone I know. He'll have 10 birds a season that he's just training, and he'll be like, I got this secondhand bird from so-and-so and it sucks and I hate it. And he'll just spend 2 seasons, and then all of a sudden he'll be like, oh yeah, I love that bird. She's doing great, you know? So I think, you know, him just being so disciplined and dedicated to training. And also he even told me that when you're flying a big female, that you have like a ceiling around 600 or 800 feet, where some of them just never want to climb higher than that if you're, you know, flying them to a balloon or a drone. And that's what he's looking for, is the female that's willing to keep going higher than that. And I think that has to do with, you know, all that body mass.
Makes sense. Yeah. That's super fascinating.
I would love to live somewhere cold and fly a female gyr.
You'll probably regret
sounds
it,
super
though,
cool to me.
if you flew one.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
I heard they can just be
it's
a
just
real.
like
Well, Jake
you know
Messenger,
how them big girls can be.
Yeah, oh yeah, feisty. No, but Jake likes the gyrs, but I heard, you know, they just gyrs. I heard they just like to play and tail chase, even if they're not super interested in catching. They'll just
like grab ass.
Yeah. So no, the long wing thing is foreign to me and Aaron, really. So it's cool to hear you talk about it. And the sky trials are cool, but like the only thing that bothers me about them, and like not trying to be like a hater, but like are guys like, no, but I'm just, it's a fair question. Are guys sacrificing like hunting with their birds to just try to like prepare for like an event that's like once a year? You know what I mean? Like that seems a little weird to me.
People who have done that. That's not common, but there have been people who have done that and won. So, right. and people frown upon it. Dave Cherry, he's catching ducks from that kind of a pitch.
Sweet. That's cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. But, you know, there have been other people who have won that made a bird for the purpose of doing it. Actually, I mean, I can talk about one of them. He's a friend of mine, Ryan Grisco. He's grown up around this, and he wanted to win the Sky Trials probably since he was, you know, who knows, a teenager. And he set out, and he said, that's what I'm going to do. And he, as he put it to me, brainwashed his bird into going up, and just ballooned and ballooned and ballooned. He was working a landfill at the time, which, you know, you got nothing else to do other than balloon falcons. And he just got that bird. So he put it brainwashed, and he won the Sky Trial that year. And when you do that, you know, there is an aspect of the scoring, which is the pursuit on the pigeon. And if you have a bird that you train just for the Sky Trial, you're going to be weak in that area versus the game hawk. But he had such a good pitch and such a fast mount and whatever, he was able to win.
Got it.
But yeah, some people will frown on it, but I look at it as he's a hardcore game hawker, always has been, and he set out a goal. I'm going to win the Sky Trial. Every year they put out a shirt for the event, and it has the name of everybody who's ever won it, the year, and the name of the bird that did it. He's like, I want my name on that shirt, and he made it happen.
So what do you get for winning?
Your name on that shirt? Clout? There's probably a small... there's like a small cash pool or something every year, but no one gives a shit about that. It's clout. I
want ribbons.
You know, you get your name on that shirt every year for as long as that event ever goes on. You want it.
That's pretty cool. Who serves the pigeon? How do you know that that's fair?
So you can bring out somebody into the field with you, and they can serve your pigeon. Or you can
supply your own pigeon?
No. So there's
dude, I would just cut loose like one that's just like in a little box for like 6 months and just cut that sucker loose, bro. My bird just creams it. I'm like, I won.
That is someone that supplies, you know, you find a local like pigeon racer that'll supply. And yeah, sometimes it works out really well because the pigeon racers actually get it. They know like, oh, this is going to make better birds. So they're happy to do it, even though they might lose some birds because they improve their breeding stock. And so based on your draw, when your number's drawn, you get to go and pick the 2 pigeons that you want from the group of pigeons. And then someone else actually serves them.
That's pretty interesting.
So I picked 2 white ones on purpose because white homing pigeons aren't known to be the best flyers.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because I feel like there's got to be like some standard to, you know, for the pigeon that's released if you're scoring on that. Because if somebody releases like a dud that just gets smoked, it's like
it happens, but they all come from the same supplier. So if they're gonna, some years the pigeons are shitty, some years they're good, but it tends to be consistent among the group because they're coming from the same person.
And God forbid your falcon follows the pigeon back home to its loft, and then the guy just shoots your bird out of the air. Dude, those pigeon racer dudes got like piles of Cooper's Hawks in the back of their house.
They don't play with that.
Yeah, they do not care.
I feel even worse for the guys with the rollers.
What's that?
The rolling pigeons. They just go up in the air and roll to the ground. So they got no moves when hawk or falcon comes in. They're just dead.
It's like fainting goat or something.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, they just faint and crash to the ground. Yeah, that's the pigeon I would serve to my bird at the Sky Trial. It just gets up, and then as soon as it gets a little stressed, it just like starts tumbling to the ground.
So, do spectators come to the Sky Trials that are non-falconers? Like, do people hear about it and come?
Not generally, but it has happened where like a media outlet from the town that we're doing the event in puts it out there, and we try to avoid that happening just so there's no Karens or no Karens, or I don't want to say, for lack of a better term, PETA types that come out. Just, you never know what you're going to get if you put out there in the local, paper, there's going to be a falconry event here and they're going to have this pigeon derby. Suddenly you get the producers of Tiger King out.
Yeah, cruelty to pigeons. So
yeah,
this reminds me, being in such a populous state for falconry, and we know that California Hawking Club's a huge club. You were part, and I'm assuming you're still a member of NAFA, correct? But you were a director, is that right?
I was a director from 2019 to 2022, if I remember correctly. I'm not a member currently.
Whoa.
Why not?
Yeah, let's hear about that.
Why not? Let's talk about it.
Oh man, you guys are this is not gonna make me any friends. But
I'm not a member either, so
if I'm not going to the NAFA event that year, they raised their dues, which came during my term. I was opposed to it, and they put it out there for the membership to vote on a bylaws change, allowing the dues to be raised. So as a director, I said, okay, I will vote in favor of letting the membership decide if they want to shoot themselves in the foot that way. As I would put it, I, as a member of a club, wouldn't vote in favor of changing bylaws to allow the directors and board members to, have a say over raising of dues, where the club members had it before. So I said, okay, well, I believe in the democratic process. As a director, I will vote in favor of letting the club vote, but as a club member, I'm voting against it. So that's what I did. Voted against the, raising of dues, but I don't read the NAFA Journal. I've never opened one. I have a whole stack of them. I wrote all my director's reports in them. I'm being honest to God, never read one. Never have opened the envelope that they come in. I haven't thrown them away. I have them. But it hasn't interested me. As a kid, I loved magazines. Boys Life magazine, you name it, Reptile magazine, car magazines, Hot Rod magazine. But with the internet and and everything, I have not had an interest in it. So that's a big draw for people, is the periodical. That's not a draw for me. If I'm not going to the meet, it doesn't save me any money to be a member. So I don't have a direct reason to be a member. And I don't think that my falconry rights and all that are in such jeopardy that I need to pay this organization to protect them, nor do I think that they're necessarily going to be the best entity to do that.
Interesting.
Wow. Why do you think they wouldn't be the best entity to protect them?
Well, a lot of that stuff comes down to states issues. So if I have an issue with falconry in my state, like, am I going to turn to my state club or NAFA for more help? Of course, I would like NAFA's help, but the burden is more on my state club and the falconers in my state than this national organization. I just don't see at the moment a huge national threat to falconry. I'm not looking to fly a golden eagle. So, there's certain things where if I was looking to fly a golden eagle, then it would be in my best interest to be a NAFA member, because they're more likely to make me able to do that.
Here's the thing with that is, why would they be more likely to do that, first of all?
Oh, well, they're working, with Fish and Wildlife on these things, like let's get depredation permits, or let's get trapping permits for these eagles that are depredating on ranches and stuff like that. NAFA's involved in things like that. So
I don't know if that's NAFA. I don't know if that's them so much as it is the International Eagle Ostrichers Association.
Whenever these things come up, NAFA will, if they can, draft up something, send a letter out, have their legal counsel advise on it. So they're involved in those things, but it's kind of like you said, there's other organizations that are players in these things too. So that's why I say I'm not certain that NAFA is going to be the best entity to really do anything to protect my falconry.
So I don't think they're doing enough with eagle access, personally. For instance, one of the most common sense things that I think NAFA should push for is the captive breeding of eagles for falconry purposes.
Yeah,
As
that's
it
crazy.
stands, there's one facility in the country that's breeding golden eagles in captivity, and it's the Comanche Nation, I guess, I'm not sure if that's the right term for it, but it's the Sia Eagle Preserve run by the Comanches. But those eagles aren't accessible to falconers. They're using them for cultural purposes. There's no reason why falconers with propagation permits should not be able to breed non-releasable eagles in captivity. It just makes zero sense to me. It would make more sense to me for them to say, you can breed eagles and use them for falconry, but you can no longer take them from the wild. That would make more sense to me than them not allowing the captive breeding of eagles.
Right. Maybe they assume that there's a conflict. There's always conflicts with ranchers and people that raise livestock.
Dude,
and
they
eagles,
only give,
so
they issue like 5 permits a year
for the whole country, or just
for
per
like
state?
The whole country.
Oh, that's kind of
weird. There's only one state participating in that program, and it's Wyoming. That's it. We're talking the whole golden eagle range in America. So Montana, Idaho, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, whatever. Only one single state is participating.
Has NAFA taken an official stance on propagation of eagles? I don't recall it ever coming up during my term.
I asked a couple times when I had the opportunity, and it's like they brush it off. Oh yeah, it's something that we're, it's on our radar. It's something, they don't give a fuck about it.
Yeah, NAFA is an interesting organization because they're pro falconry, pro the falconers in the country, right? And then the other issue is I'm friends with the former Northeast director, and we had a killer day. I mean, it wasn't a killer day by, California standards. We all had fresh goshawks, and we went to one of my fields in New York, and we all, in an afternoon, we all got lucky. We all scored a rabbit, and we took a nice photo, had a couple flights on film, and it was fun. Nothing crazy. And the Northeast director saw it, and he's like, "That's amazing. Can you send me that picture? I'm putting together whatever." And then he, like, a week goes by, and then he texts me again. He's like, "You're not a member of NAFA anymore?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't been for a while. I tried to sign up like 17 times, but my email is on file, and they won't allow me to change it. And even when I called them, they were not helpful whatsoever." She's like, she was sweet and kind, whoever answered the phone. But then it was like, you have to go online and follow the steps. I said, I followed the steps 17 times. Literally, I was sitting there all day trying to do it. Wouldn't let me do it. I had to basically create a new email account to sign up again. Long story short, he wouldn't put that, not that we were that big of a deal, but it was just a good day and it was a nice picture or whatever. He wouldn't put that in his report because none of us were NAFA members. And I'm like, okay, so we weren't NAFA members. So now we can't, we're practicing legal falconry and we're having a good time. Like, you can't put that in the journal because we're not paying you guys. So that just was another thing that was kind of like, it irked me. I'm like, How does that make sense? Dude, I'm in full guard right now, bro. I don't like, I'm not a huge fan of NAFA. Like, I think what they do is important. I think that the average falconer, and myself included, I think we should probably be members of NAFA. Because they do, I'm sure there is, I can't put my finger on it, but I'm sure there's things that they do that we all can't do by ourselves or as an individual. And I have heard stories of people getting jammed up and NAFA sending, James or somebody else to go represent them or to square it away, get involved somehow to have the courts make considerations based off of certain things. So there are some things that they do. And I think as falconers, I feel the need to say that we all should be members of NAFA. And your state club.
What if you have multiple state clubs?
I think you should be members of all of them. If you're going to a club on a regular basis, you should be a member of it. And help support. If you like hawking in a certain state and you go there all the time, you should probably join their club and help that club succeed.
No. I mean, what if your state has multiple clubs?
Well, that's just like we were talking. That's just politics.
I'm just messing with you.
It's just drama, and I don't understand. I don't understand the point of it. Like, we talked about it a million times, but I hang out with people that view the world completely differently than I do. They know I view it completely differently than I do, and we can still be fine with each other. I'm not going to get in a fight with you and argue about it.
Oh, and this is the one thing that made me just not want to keep giving my money to NAFA is while I was on the board, there was routinely discussions of paying an outside entity for what they were calling strategic planning.
Like a PR firm or something?
I don't even know. Some firm that's not falconers to come up with NAFA's strategic plan. I guess a firm that helps NGOs and businesses organize and plan things. Exactly. And this was something that was pushed super aggressively, was strategic planning. And this mentioned that we had paid a firm to do strategic planning in the past. So I start digging in to this firm. And first of all, I'm thinking, what can an outside entity that's not falconers come up with the plan for NAFA that all of these, lawyers and like super diverse group of intellectual people that NAFA has as members that are actual falconers can't come up with? Like their whole board of directors and their entire membership, they're actual falconers that understand all of our issues. How can an outside organization plan better than NAFA's board and membership? So then I start digging in, and it turns out that this firm that they had hired in the past and that they were pushing to hire again was owned and run by one of the board members' brothers.
Here we go.
Oh, there it is.
Here we go.
A tale as old as time.
There we go.
So that particular board member lost his reelection and wasn't reelected.
Who was it? Shut him up.
I mean, you just go back in the minutes and whatever. I don't want to, dox anyone or whatever, because again, I've heard nothing but great things about this person outside of my experiences on the board. So nothing but great things.
To play devil's advocate, if his brother, because I mean, my brother, grew up beating brush with me. He would drive me to the fields. He was 4 years older than me. So like if my brother was involved in something like that, I'm sure, around the Thanksgiving table, he was probably like, listen, my firm could put something together to try to really get you guys ahead in the, in the general public's view of falconry to try to get ahead of some of this stuff.
We don't have a plan. NAFA doesn't have a strategic plan. They're not goal oriented. They need to be more like on a mission and somehow this organization or this firm was going to help get us there. Well, what did they do in previous years when we hired them? Why are we not there? So there's this kind of stuff, and then I see the firm's owned by someone's brother, and then that person was routinely talking about how they don't get paid and how throwing it out there, maybe NAFA should start to have some paid board positions and things like that. And I don't care how much money someone makes in their work life, their business life, how much they think their time is worth. If they want to volunteer that valuable time to the organization, they're free to do so. Or they can do whatever else they want with their time. But during my time in NAFA, there seemed to be this idea that the board needs to recruit like the highest standard of people to be the board members, instead of like, we have elections. These directors are coming from regions, and their regions are voting for them. And there was this big push to recruit people. And the vice president that they voted on, nobody told me anything about him until we were sitting in a board meeting presented with him to vote on if he's going to be the vice president.
Right.
That was the first time I heard his name, was during that meeting where they say, this is Keith Gardner, and we're going to vote on him for vice president. I'm like, I don't know this fucking dude. Never met him, never even heard of him until right now. And right. I told him, I'm sure you're wonderful. I'd love to meet you, but I'm voting no, because this was just presented to me right now.
Right.
And
this is kind of weird.
Yeah. And that's how, things were done during my.
I had said that on a previous podcast. The president and vice president are not voted on by the membership.
How does that make sense?
Voted on by the board. They're voted on by the board, and me as a board member, they fucking brought this dude to the meeting. Vote now, and this is the only person you have, the only option.
Right.
So it would be like Congress just elects our president.
Yeah,
like they're elected, they're democratically elected, but then they get to make the decision of who the president is.
And then it'd be like half a Congress or 3/4 of Congress or whatever, just bring some dude, hey, here, this is the person, and the other part's just blindsided. Like, what?
Kind of sounds familiar, but anyway.
Oh, and then another thing I was told was, I think whoever created the original bylaws for NAFA, missing an inside joke there, but whoever created this original idea of having regional directors that are voted on by their region, that was genius, because everyone gets represented, and it's trying to kind of curb some of this, in cahoots type behavior, good old boy type club. So I would write that in my director's reports. There was a thing at the time in Alaska where they were changing the wild take stuff. They were changing the dates where you could take from this certain area to basically make it so you couldn't pull an IS, which was going to affect the people that are, the gyrfalcon breeders. And I had a big gyrfalcon breeder in my region, which was California and Nevada. So I said, I'm completely opposed to this. Like, any kind of a wild take and a land access were my big things that if I'm going to be on a board, that's what I want to, support. And this is putting a limit on the natural resource. I don't agree with it. So that's why I think it's great that we have regional directors from different regions. They can speak their opinion. They can say what they want. And I could put that right out there to my thing. And the Alaska director, Tim Sell, he was really nice. I'm sure he completely disagreed with me, but he didn't take issue with it. But when I was doing my last board meeting with NAFA and they were recruiting the new people or onboarding the new people that were just elected onto the board, they told them that they are welcome to vote against things and disagree in the boardroom. But as soon as things get passed, that they are to just toe the line, and that the board has to unanimously view things. And this guy's looking me right in my face while he's telling the new people that, because that was not me when I was on that board, and nor do I think that's how it should be.
Right. So you were opposed to them moving the dates that would limit take in Alaska.
Yeah, because they were just making it so they were changing the dates to make it so you couldn't pull a gyrfalcon from that area. Because and then what they were doing was they were going, oh, but we're going to give you goshawk take. Everyone's like, we can fucking take goshawks from other places. We don't want that. We're not going to go to Alaska for a goshawk. We want your gyrfalcons. And
they have big birds there.
Yeah, well, my take on it is, as falconers, we might not have wild take anymore. So we should want as much genetics in our captive gene pool as possible while we can get it. Right. Or we're going to have this thing where, like, right now, trying to find a healthy lanner falcon is a chore. You're lucky if you get one that doesn't die of a congenital liver disease that they get in like a year. And there's no new blood, and no one's going to go and like try to bring in a lanner falcon because it's not a good game hawk. Right. So anyways, that's what you get when you get a reduced gene pool. So these people feeling like this natural resource is theirs because it's in their state, it's just not doing the entire U.S. falconry community any favors by limiting access for what we can put into our captive gene pool.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But you wouldn't be able to breed it for 2 years anyway?
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, that's what there are people going and taking birds with that intention. And
right, got it.
There are falconers up there that take issue with that, and then try to intervene.
I don't know if I like that. I mean, yeah, like I could see like my initial thought, it like irks me to think that like, you get like there's like 5 tags or two permits issued for gyrfalcon take, and then like out of the 2 permits that are given, like they all go to breeders that they're not going to fly it and use it, and it's just going to go straight into a breeding project for the rest of its life. That kind of bothers me, right?
You would think there could be 2 takes, but resident take and non-resident take.
I see that.
But I do see your point. I do see your point, and you were probably educated by your buddy who breeds gyrs talking about the diversity. And I mean, I had the same discussion with my sponsor about Albitus goshawks. Like, when was the last time we brought fresh Albitus goshawk genetics into the country? So, that
didn't even come from the breeder. That came from me with my background in dogs.
Right.
So
you
protection dogs, you want good Rottweiler, Malinois, German Shepherd, whatever. And people say, oh, they're better in Europe. I disagree that they're necessarily better in Europe, but we should still be bringing new blood in from anywhere we can get it if it's good.
Yeah, I agree. No, I definitely agree. We're talking about that. Me and Aaron talk about that with dachshunds, bringing in some fresh stuff from like, what was it, like the Czech Republic, or a couple different countries have real good dogs. We were trying to get our paws on.
One of my friends, falconer Rebecca, she just got a dachshund from some guy like in the Midwest, and the sire was imported. And he's like, I don't have AKC papers. So he gave her this bitch. She's like, I don't have AKC papers, whatever. She's like, I'm just going to hunt with it. I don't care. She calls me and she goes, she was able to get the paperwork on it. She goes, I really like her. And if she's, really good in the field, I want to breed her. And I said, how big is she? What's her coat like? What's the temperament like? And I was like, I don't care if she hunts at this point because everything else is good. And you can, I'm sure she's going to hunt just based on what you've told me anyways.
Yeah.
And if she's got temperament, the size, the coat, all that, like you can bring the hunt in. And I can already tell you, she's going to be better than that Simon dog that Jill brought in that doesn't hunt. I saw it with my own eyes.
Hey. Be nice to Ginger's. Be nice to Ginger's. Be nice to Ginger's grandfather, please. Be nice.
Oh,
be nice.
Is that your dog goes back to that dog? Well, there you go.
I didn't know that's her granddaughter. But she also had other very, very high level hunting genetics in her. But his coat is beautiful, and I've never seen him hunt. And and Jill doesn't hunt her dogs anyway.
Dog. Well, I saw him at 10 months old. I saw him at 10 months old.
Simon.
Yeah, he's a stud. Literally.
I saw Simon run with her dogs at 10 months old, and he stayed by her feet and sniffed the ground while her dogs ran and hunted.
Right. You got to give them a good kick when they do that. But anyway, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But I mean, to me, but it goes to show what I was just saying. Like everything else was there, and the hunt was read in from the rest of the pedigree anyways.
100%. And that's what Teddy says. Teddy says that, you have the odds are kind of in your favor when you're dealing with what we're dealing with, to get it to hunt and at least be decent. And then you can narrow it down later, whether it's worth breeding back or not, or whatever the case may be.
This reminds me, this ties together NAFA and dachshunds. So you posted a video or a picture, David, of your dachshund killing a rabbit, a wild cottontail, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you got some feedback on that?
Yeah, I posted a video of my dachshund killing a cottontail in the falconry dog group, and I got a call from the NAFA president.
Oh my God! All right, don't join NAFA, okay? You know what? Like enough of this. Don't join NAFA. Want to see this? I'm gonna send it to NAFA. This was literally this was today. They ripped it out of a hole.
Yeah, it was like a short video.
You get killed. That's it.
Well, I get called from the president saying people were complaining, and I explained to him that it's a legal method of take in my state. And he wasn't prepared for this response. I think he was just expecting me to say, okay, I'll take it down. But I said, it's a legal method of taking my state. There's nothing wrong with it. So then he went with the angle of that it's not a good look because it's cruel. And I said, that dog kills a cottontail rabbit faster than you can get to a red-tailed hawk to help it dispatch. Like, So I told him, like, this is a legal method of take in my state, and that dog dispatches a rabbit faster than a human and a hawk can do it together. And he didn't have an answer, and I left the video up. But this is the type of stuff,
that's the president of the North American Falconry Association.
Not the current one, but at the time.
Giving you a call about a video of your dachshund killing a rabbit. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and you get told that,
these people, like, who the hell are these people? Like, I'm telling you, bro, like, this shit, I'm sick of it, man. Actually, don't join NAFA. Don't join NAFA.
But that's the part that was
no, because this shit is ridiculous, bro. Because in 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to be hunting with your bird is cruel. We should just be doing sky trials, and we'll have like robot pigeons and it's fair. This way, you can't put a pigeon that's like this shit is just going to keep degrading until you get these people like in Europe that are like, actually, the housing and care for raptors is technically falconry, and it's like, no, it's actually not technically falconry. You can change the definition all you want. If you're not hunting and killing and taking game with your bird of prey, you're not practicing falconry. You're LARPing. You're keeping a pet bird. Get the hell out of my face, bro. My dog's gonna get. You know what? I'm gonna go on NAFA and I'm gonna post that video today, bro. Who is who is complaining, bro? And who is complaining? Who is going? You're on a falconry dogs page and you're complaining of somebody's falconry dog killing a rabbit, which happens all the time. Like, and you're like, who are you? Like, what planet are you from, bro? Jesus Christ, bro. I'm so pissed right now. Sorry, dude. I'm like,
it's not good because I was in an elected position. That's the part that get me. Like, sure, nobody ran against me, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
If you want to be a NAFA, if you want to be a NAFA director, if you run enough times, you'll probably just get there because nobody wants to do it.
You're like the mama.
But yeah, even though I ran unopposed, but I'm in an elected position. The people in my director elected me, ostensibly into this position. So you can fuck off telling me what to do and who I represent and that I need to toe the line.
I want my representative to be doing stuff like that. I want my representative to be out in the field, catching game. If his dog's, it depends on the scenario of how your dog caught it, but I'm sure it was the rabbit made the wrong turn, got stuck under something, he ripped it out, killed it. Like, that's awesome. Like, sometimes I'm happy when my dogs get one. Like, it's good. I mean, I wanted the bird to get one today, but there was no exit hole, so that was that. But I don't want my representative for NAFA, for the Northeast Director where I am, to be some guy who doesn't fly, who doesn't catch game, who is more busy just talking about falconry than actually practicing it. Like, that's the opposite of what you want. And to be offended over a dachshund killing a rabbit, you are at that point, you just showed your hand that you're so far disconnected from the actual sport that you are no longer qualified to be in any leadership position whatsoever in the sport. Like, just, that's all I got to say. And I would love to know who it was that was complaining about it, because like instant no respect, zero respect for that. Zero respect for that. I'm sick of it, man. I'm sick of it. This is what we do. This is our sport. Treeing bears with hounds. It's catching game with your dogs, with lurchers. This is part of what we all do, what we all love, and flying our birds. Like, you can't, like, it's preposterous to think that like one is different than the other. Like, birds of prey catch stuff, and half the time they start eating it before it's even dead, unless it's a falconer, unless it's a falcon. So it's like, are we participating in nature? Are we in the sport? Or are we just like some cushy, like cushioned version of something that's not actually real? Like, I don't understand what that kind of a person thinks the sport is. Because if you're offended by killing in a falconry group, then you should just get out of the group, like, and not be part of the group.
I think some of these old timers, though, that are from the days where you couldn't even do an apprenticeship if you wanted to get into falconry because you couldn't find a falconer, is they're all deep cover and afraid of, Operation Falcon #2 or whatever that they think is going to happen. So they have this mindset that you're not supposed to share anything.
Right. Yeah. It's the age old discussion. We've had it on this podcast many times. To post, to not to post, what not to post. Dachshunds have been bred for hundreds of years to kill stuff. I think posting it is right on par with their breed, and I don't see one iota of anything wrong with that. So
and there was not even a bird of prey in the video.
Right.
Yeah, it's like saying you shouldn't post like Schutz and like, Malinois doing protection work.
Yeah,
Because it's
biting the glove. Yeah, it's violent. You shouldn't. How dare you post that dog can bite something? Like, how dare you? It's violence. Like this whole the whatever. I'm just gonna shut up before I get us in trouble. But no, that just really pissed me off, and I take everything that I said back before. Don't join NAFA. Or join NAFA with the intention to move up the ranks to change the whole culture surrounding NAFA.
That's probably the right move right there.
Yeah, because that's what needs to happen. Because it's
supposed to be a hunting organization.
Yeah, apparently not. That's my problem with falconry, right? And my wife I'm not going to say what she said, but she says half the community are like badass hunters and out in the field catching game, having a good time. And then the other half is like a bunch of people that just like take selfies with their bird and like pretend to fly birds or whatever they do. Or whatever makes them feel good about being part of the sport.
Make it part of their personality.
They make the falconry part of their personality. They've never caught a head of game in their life. They somehow have an opinion on things. So there's like two different things that are going on. But one thing that I know
that'll get you right on the NAFA board of directors, by the way.
I mean, it sounds like it. And listen, and I'm fine with people being ignorant or not having the desire to hunt and catch game. That's fine, but then you should go volunteer time at a raptor center where you can help rehabilitate birds. Like, you should not be with a bird in your possession if you're not going to hunt it. I think you should hunt it. Unless you're a breeder. Obviously, if you're a breeder, you should continue to keep genes and stuff going so that, if we have another DDT thing, we can handle it like falconers handled it. But it's like falconers. I noticed it when me and Aaron started this podcast, and the point of the podcast is to share. Number one, falconry is our bread and butter. We're both falconers, but we also have a very strong interest in other forms of take, more traditional forms of take, more, what's the word I'm looking for, Aaron? More taboo forms of take, like treeing.
Unorthodox.
Unorthodox is good too. But it's comical to me to, like, when we posted another falconer, a little reel of the podcast of all the coyotes and foxes he kills, and he's in like a zone that's unlimited take, and he goes out at night on his farm after he catches a couple rabbits and shoots a bunch of coyotes and foxes, and like to see the falconers like lose their mind over that, like it just shows like how falconers think. I'm not trying to generalize. I'm not trying to ruffle anybody's feathers, but I'm just kind of just piecing this together as I'm thinking it. But it's like we think that we're somehow better than the guy shooting the bear or the guy shooting the coyote because we're flying birds to catch rabbits. But at the end of the day, we're hunters, and we should really be supporting other hunters as well. And not you can criticize them, yes, but you should not be publicly criticizing them where the non-hunting public can read it and say, oh, well, if even another hunter who hunts stuff, because that's how they view us. They don't view us as, magical hippies that have birds. They view us as people that are killing stuff with our birds. We're hunters. So we should really just like own up to it and be both feet in and enjoy hunting and defend other people's forms of hunting. I don't know if that, I don't know if that rant made sense.
So
totally made sense. I definitely agree.
Yeah, because it's
like I don't want to mention names.
More. I'm sorry, David. Just real quick, Casey, you're saying we should be more aligned with the bear hunters than we are with the Audubon Society.
1 billion%, because he is practicing a legal, ethical form of take. It is 1000% legal and ethical. And if he has the right or the ability to practice that, and we have the right to have our bird latch onto a rabbit's face while it's squealing, to think that you're somehow like in a different realm and you're better than that. Like, the bear is climbing up a tree and sitting there while the dogs are barking at the bottom of the tree. Like, your bird's latched onto a rabbit's face. Like, you're not any better than the person running the hounds and bears. Like, you're not like this magical, like mystical fairy from like the fucking Renaissance festival. You're
out there. Some people are.
Well, right. Well, that's fine because I know guys that catch over 100 squirrels with a Tirso goshawk and then put a cape on. So shout out Miguel from Staten Island. So, it's just, and that's fine, but, it's just, you got to check yourself. You're in the field catching game. Like you're not a beastmaster, like this mystical person. Like you're a hunter, just like the rest of them. You're looking for game. You're using dogs to flush the game for your bird to catch. You're not shooting it with a gun. That doesn't mean that you're like eco-friendly. It just means that you enjoy falconry, or you're dumb like me. Because if you go out with a shotgun, you actually get stuff more than you don't, like today, because today sucked. But
all right, I interrupted David. Go ahead,
David. Continue.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I totally agree. And along the same lines, I've seen falconers disparage different types of hunting, and it drives me wild. Like one I've seen recently is this notion that it is unethical or wrong or, makes you a terrible person if you hunt on the outskirts of a national park. And you wait for these animals that are protected in the boundaries of this national park to walk outside of, where humans are not a threat and where they're fair game and get taken.
Right.
And I'm like, that's just anti-hunting, that mentality to me. And to see this coming from falconers is just disappointing.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I think national parks that don't allow hunting and wildlife preserves, I think they're all, they should all be abolished and you should be allowed to hunt everything. Why can you not hunt? Why can you not hunt them?
I love Steve Rinella's idea about, he says, like, we should, I don't remember his exact term, but basically rewild them and take the roads out of those places. So you can't drive into them and just allow foot access and hunting. And he's like, those elk they'll be wild in one season again.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And, the states that allow bear hunting with hounds, the bears aren't getting into the trash in people's houses and becoming a threat when they're overpopulated. They understand their place and they understand where they need to be. And you can gripe all you want that we're in their habitat. You could be literally in a skyscraper in Manhattan. I'm sure a bear was, however many years ago, there was a bear that probably wandered right where you're freaking sitting. You could be 10 stories up, right on the floor where your freaking foundation is. There was probably a bear that walked right through there. There is no scenario where you are separated from the realities of what we've created in this country and what we continue to create, which is a whole nother topic that we don't have to get into. But
so, David, all of this talk of hunting, non-falconry hunting reminds me, it might have been the first time I saw you online, you were involved in a crane hunt. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, tell us about that. So, that's a pretty unique opportunity.
It was a special draw on a federal land in New Mexico. So Tyler Sladen, friend of mine, friend of everybody, told me,
we're in a group
chat. He's like, hey, there you go. He said, hey, we're in a group chat. He's like, you guys should put in for this sandhill crane hunt. So I put in for it. It's like, okay, whatever. And I'd never done any other kind of hunting in my life other than falconry. City boy. Incidentally, my first dog was a dachshund I got in 6th grade and called her Little Ann after reading Where the Red Fern Grows. It's like, that's what I wanted to do. It was like, felt like I was just like, born in the wrong place in the wrong time. So I always had a yearning for it. So put in, and I didn't know how to look to see if I got chose for the draw or anything. I figured they would contact me. So maybe 2 weeks before the hunt, I get an email like, oh, you ready for your hunt? And I had fired a shotgun one time on sporting clays ever, like a few months before that. And I called Tyler. I'm like, message him. I'm like, hey, I got drawn for that. I just found out. He's like, you should have found out like 6 months ago. And I go, well, I don't know. He goes, yeah, you just go in the system and you look. I'm like, oh, I didn't do that. I figured I never put in for a lottery hunt before. So I had, if I would have known, I would have had all summer to practice and shooting, whatever. So I could get drawn like 2 weeks notice, plan this trip, go out there, not even knowing how to shoot a shotgun. Was able to bag one sandhill crane, should have limited out. It was like over 2 a day over 2 or 3 days with the hunt was or something. Had an opportunity to take like 6.
Oh, cool.
But it was a blast. There's this guy, Matthew, I can't remember his last name top of my head, but he does hunts for veterans out there, and he'll guide veterans that get opportunities to hunt. And, he's got all the decoys and everything, and he's a good caller. So he's a friend of Tyler's because Tyler's a vet, and Tyler had helped him out with some project he was doing before. So he had happened to have a military vet that got the same tag as me that he was helping out. And so he welcomed me to join. So he put out a whole spread of decoys and brought out blinds for us. He's calling the sandhill cranes like in right to our feet. It was awesome.
That's cool. Ribeye in the sky, as they say.
Yeah. Is it actually delicious like they say?
It is delicious. It tastes like if a cow was just eaten in a swamp.
Interesting.
So not quite beef. Maybe a little exaggeration,
delicious.
but like it was good, like delicious red meat, but it had just a little bit of marsh flavor in there.
Ooh,
interesting.
I kind of like that though. How are you okay, so educate us. Are you cooking it like duck or like rare or
I just breasted the medium rare for the breast, and then the legs are super tough, so I cooked them down and made some kind of like a stew out of them, which is pretty good, but that was a whole project.
Yeah,
they're so tough.
Mm.
So you're calling them in, and are you waiting for them to land and start like doing their velociraptor walk, and then you freaking blast them, or are you hitting them in the air?
We were hitting them in the air. We tried to have them land a couple times, but we don't know because there are 4 of us there. We don't know if somebody was peeking out the blind, but we couldn't get them to fully commit for some reason.
Right. Were they using retrieving dogs?
No.
Okay. Yeah, because I always heard when you're using retrieving dogs, there's all kinds of special considerations you have to take because they have a literal spear attached to their face. So they will use it, and you gotta have a dog that kind of knows what's going on. And sometimes you got to give, I think you put a vest on them and like a little pair of goggles. I saw one time. I remember that post actually. Tyler's pictures he took. I think he took some sweet pictures if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I've never had an opportunity to do a hunt like that. I'd love to, but that's interesting, man. That was cool that you got out. So how'd you feel getting out and doing a different kind of a hunt rather than just falconry? Did you feel dirty and naughty?
Were you all boned up while you were doing
it? It was like kind of surreal, growing up as a kid that's like reading like Tom Sawyer, like wishing I was living on the river when I'm like a city boy. It's like, oh wow, like I'm actually out here, doing this. But then there's the other part. It's like, fuck, I don't know how to shoot a shotgun.
Right.
So it's like a little bit of a wake up call for my sportsmanship or fieldcraft. But the whole experience was amazing. Just going out and seeing the birds being called in and everything, seeing this guy who was helping us out and calling him in was real knowledgeable. He was, teaching us about the different types of decoys that he was picking, because you get the ones they're eating or the one that's, popped up, and how you're spreading them out. And you want to put one of the eating ones here and one of the ones that looks like it's just landing over here. You had a whole system. So it was all real cool and interesting.
What do you happen to know what they eat, like what their diet is? Like, I'm assuming they're eating like fish, or I mean, that sounds stupid because don't they live on land? Are they eating rodents?
They're omnivores because they're omnivores. I don't know exactly what they're eating, but I believe they were growing. So what's happening is this federal land, but then there's all these little farms, like little tiny little plots all around it, and the birds go in and they're eating. I think it was like sorghum or something random that they were growing out there. So they're eating the crops they're growing, but then they're also going to eat, insects and probably shellfish and anything they could probably get their beak on, I would imagine. But I think that was part of the reason, because it's a special draw on a preserve, basically. And I assume that what they're having to do is cull them slightly and then also put a little spook into them. Otherwise, they just start coming in and tearing these people's crops up.
I got it. So it's kind of like you're accomplishing two different things while you're there.
Yeah, because it's a preserve, so they're protected. But then it's like once a year they gotta like put them on blast real quick so they don't just completely run amok, I guess.
Literally put them on blast. That's cool, man. That's awesome that you had that opportunity. Yeah, I'm in the whole train of thought on upping your game and other forms of hunting. I feel like there's so much stuff that I feel like I don't know, and I've done all different kinds of hunting, but there's so much, like especially trapping. Like I feel like trapping is like a whole nother world that like, I want to get into, because it's just, I feel like that's like when you've mastered the wilderness, when you can put a little trap out and get a coyote to step directly in it or identify sign and snare something. I mean, it just seems, it's so foreign to me. And all the other hunting, I mean, there's plenty of other hunting like elk calling, like you could just keep going on for days and days. I don't know if you have enough lifetimes to do it all, but that's cool that you got to experience that. Now, on the same vein of hunting, we kind of brushed over, but I kind of just want to hear a little bit more detail, if that's okay, of like how you're identifying your fields, how you're setting up your slips, how you run your dog, how you utilize him. Are you popping the collar off when he's going to these rock piles, like stuff like that? So you can just run us through some of that, if you don't mind.
So somehow finding my stuff is sometimes I'll be on a Facebook group and someone in the community group will post a picture of a cottontail somewhere at some spot in the city.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, okay, well, there's rabbits around there. And then also anywhere I see train tracks, I'll kind of, I'm driving around and I see old railroad tracks. So we have decommissioned ones out here. If I see them and then I see some, tumbleweed around them, I go, okay, I'll go drop dogs and see if there's anything, areas where I'm hunting and I already have fields. I'm driving around and I see they're putting up houses in this one spot. I'm like, okay, there's going to be piles of lumber and, any new construction. If I already know there's rabbits around that area, it's a go. So I'm looking for kind of like if you go out and you're going to a meet, a new place, and no one's going to give you fields, just go out and, okay, what's good cottontail habitat? Doing that in the middle of the city in Southern California. And then also going off any leads I get. If I even know somebody, we hunt in this area, just go out there and start looking for habitat. And with the dachshunds, I don't have to have, a traditional field that people are usually looking for. So it allows me to access smaller, more dense spots.
Right.
And setting up my slips, I'm mostly flying my bird off the fist. And that's just a preference thing. So I've got dog in close, usually only running one dog at a time, intentionally, just to keep everything tight and keep the bird right there on the fist, not have him want to follow. Not having I don't want the bird following the dogs, just a preference thing. And then keeping the dog close, and I'll send the dog in where I want him. And just, he's collar trained, doesn't run with a collar on. He's almost always pretty much totally naked. If I need a handle, to get some more handle on him, I'll put the collar on him and find something to make a point out of around the house. And then in the field, he's already got the message in the house, that he should listen. So generally don't have a collar on in the field. So I don't have to worry about him getting caught up in the ground. Don't run him with GPS or telemetry or anything, because I don't allow him to track rabbits very far.
Got it.
It's really dry where I'm at. So it's not, I don't have like the type of stuff you have back east where you flush one rabbit and it might be the only rabbit around and it runs through some wet grass to another place and the dog can track a good long wet track and find that same rabbit again. It's dry as shit. And the dog's going to run into another rabbit track before he even hits that rabbit anyways. So I usually call him off. I'll call him off a hot track when he's voicing if the bird's pursuing the rabbit. And that keeps him from blowing out the rest of the field too if the bird misses that rabbit.
Got it. No, that's good.
So it's all just right there, dog at my feet, just, directional. If I point, he knows, he understands directional points, go here, go there, and the bird on the glove.
That's awesome, man. That's cool. Yeah, it sounds. I like the way that sounds. That sounds like goshawking, pretty much. But that's great, man. Yeah.
Pretty much. And I'd catch probably, I might catch 25, 30% more rabbits if I let the bird fly from wherever he wanted or carried a T-perch. But it's just so much more exciting to have it right there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's easier for me to control everything. You got a dachshund in the field. I got coyotes in my fields, like everything else. So birds on the glove, dogs at my feet, and I don't have to try to track everybody.
Yeah. No, that's good. No, I think that's wise. And not letting the dog cut loose and burn out a field quick while the bird's doing something or misses a slip and you're trying to get it back. That's huge. And I never really had that concept in my mind until I hawked with Seth Roy, and he's real big into keeping the field pristine and stay right. I mean, he's to the point, like, and a lot of his fields are great where there's a ton of rabbits. So like literally if the bird misses and goes up into a tree and he walks over to call the bird down, if you step 3 feet to your right, you could possibly flush a rabbit in some of these fields. So he just tells everybody to freeze. I'll get the bird back. And he walks like back through the trail that he walked to get the bird. And then his cocker just sits like where he left it when he walked all the way away. It doesn't try to follow him and keep hunting. It just stays there. And then when he comes back, it's like you push, like in a video game, you just push play again. And then you keep going. No, but it's great because like, I grew up like with Paul and Phil, and we just get out there and have fun and just like, the dogs are running this way. We're trying to follow them. We're trying to get
wrestling each other.
We're friggin' arm locking each other. Birds flying all over the place. It's but like that's our style, or like, and it's fun that way. But I found myself trying to be a little bit more conscious of like keeping stuff tighter, like because of the potential of another slip. And if I'm let the dogs continue, there's nothing worse than if you only have a certain amount of acres or not even an acre to work with, and your bird flies and lands on a building, and you go over there to get it, and the dog keeps going and flushes 2 more rabbits. That might have been the only other 2 rabbits in the whole field. And then you spend the rest of the day doing, there's nothing there. Then you got to pack up, drive, go somewhere else, or you're done. So that's cool that you do it that way. I like it. Keep it tight.
So we like it tight around here. David, what are your future plans with falconry? Are you planning on doing what you've always been doing, or what's going on? What the hell is happening?
So a little bit more of the same. I'm going to try 2 things this season, a little bit different. So I have 2 Harris hawks, but I only fly one on rabbits. The other bird is not made on rabbits. He'll try to chase them, but I've never really focused on it. So I was going to try to get the other bird catching them and then introduce the 2 together. And then also I only run 1 dog at a time. So I was thinking of trying 2 birds and 2 dogs all together. I don't think I'm going to do a lot of it because it'll be fun, but it's going to be hectic. And then also It gets to a point where I know how effective I am with 1 bird and 1 dog. If I put another bird and another dog out there, it'll be fun for a while, but I also like the challenge. And that'll be a lot less challenging. As far as catching the rabbits, the challenge will be controlling 2 dogs in the field and keeping track of 2 birds. Yeah. But that's sort of something I'm just going to play around with. But what's more exciting is I've got a lot of ditches by me, like you've seen in the Whack 'em and Stack 'em videos, those old videos where they're on those concrete riverbeds catching ducks with goshawks. I want to do that with my Harris hawks. Ryan Grisco had a male Harris hawk that caught a shitload of ducks in those situations many years ago. So I know it can be done, and got it all over me now in this new spot I just moved to. So I'm going to start launching some pigeons out of those spots. 1 bird has caught a duck incidentally, and the other one has slammed water trying to catch him. So both of them are interested.
Cool.
I just got to get out there and show them, launch some pigeons out of those situations. The biggest obstacle is when they see ducks, they don't blast off the fist like they do when they see a rabbit. They sit there, they calculate it, and they think. So I just need to bag them on pigeons in the environment enough that they're going to blast off when they see a duck, and I think they'll be going.
Cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. We hope to see some cool videos this season. Are you doing that this season?
Yep. So I got the 1 birds that wait And the other bird was like 20, 30 grams overweight. Last time I weighed him, which was like 2 days ago. So he'll be ready to go sometime within the week.
Cool. That's what I'm talking about, man.
Was there anything else you don't think we touched on, David, that you'd like to mention?
No, I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, I think it was good. Where can people find you? Do you want to be found, first of all? And if you want to be found, where can they find you?
We all know each other, but anyone they're looking for me, just my name. Instagram's David G. Feliciano. Facebook, David Feliciano.
Cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Good stuff, man. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.